evening, councillors. I would like to bring this regular meeting of the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln to order and ask that everyone please rise for the national anthem. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. I would like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber's doors and obey all instructions given, and if assistance is required, please see the clerk who is sitting in front of my table. Once you have evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Also, the Town of Lincoln Committee and Council meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. I would like to thank the public for attending the meeting this evening, and I just want to remind everyone of our rules of engagement, to please be respectful while others are speaking and to please refrain from clapping. I'll read the land acknowledgement. The Shannonton people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. We would like to acknowledge the enduring resilience of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. Councillor Rinchima is running late this evening. To my right, I have Deputy Mayor Tony Brunet, Councillor John Pachariva, and Councillor Adam Russell. To my left, Councillor Paul McPherson, Councillor Mike Mikulik, Councillor Lynn Timmers, and Councillor Greg Reimer. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Reimer? I see your name here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I need to declare interest in item 12.2, PD-74-19. The applicant is a customer of the company that I work for.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other declarations of interest? There being none, we have presentations this evening. Madam Clerk, did you mean we have no presentations this evening? Thank you. I thought possibly there was something that I wasn't aware of. And we have no recognition or achievements this evening. There are no registered delegations this evening. I think, councillors, this is why the chambers is empty of members of the public. We're now considering item now point 1, which is council minutes of October 28th, 2019, and 9.2, special council minutes of October the 30th, 2019. Do members of council have any questions or comments on either the council or special council minutes? I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Reimer. Approve the minutes of the following meetings of council. Council minutes of October 28, 2019. Special council minutes of October the 30th, 2019. Your pleasure on the motion. All those in favor? There are none opposed. The motion is carried. There is no correspondence this evening. We will now consider items 11.1 through 11.3, which are recommendations from standing committees. Do members of council have any questions or comments? These minutes are from the meeting of Committee of the Whole, General Business and Finance Committee, and Community Services and Infrastructure Committee for the benefit of those watching. Any comments? I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Timmers. Approve the following recommendations from standing committees. Committee of the Whole, Budget Minutes of October 30th, 2019. General Business and Finance Committee Minutes of November the 4th, 2019. Community Services and Infrastructure Committee Minutes of November the 6th, 2019. Your pleasure on the motion? None opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you. We are now considering item 12.1, Regional Councillor Update. Councillor Foster, please come forward to the podium.
There we are. Good evening. Thank you, Council. So, to start with tonight, a couple of things that I didn't include on my report that I sent to you. Number one is that, as you know, I'm on a variety of committees outside of Niagara Region. One is AMO, and I'm the co-chair of the digital task force that we're working with at AMO right at the moment. In the last 3 weeks, we have had 2 meetings on our committee. We have had presentations on cybersecurity from the OPP, from the RCMP, as well as a number of other persons and companies that have come to the AMO to talk about that particular area. How can I say this? The whole discussion is actually a little on the frightening side on cybersecurity these days. And I would suggest that, and I've sent some information on to Mr. Kirkopoulos from our meeting today that I was at, but I would suggest to you that this is an area that you guys as a council and we at the region are going to have to step up with to the nth degree. Unfortunately, there are a wide variety of reasons why there have been municipalities that have been basically taken down and held for ransom in the last while, hackers coming in and getting into their systems, and it's not getting any better. So the discussion today from the RCMP was basically municipalities are an easy target because if they take down our systems, we're in big trouble, and they consider municipalities to have deep pockets to try and get out of things. So that's why municipalities seem to, at this current time, be something that these organizations are going after. So anyway, more to come on that, and I will be passing on information to you guys here at Lincoln Council. Just a further note on that, and it's something that you may want to consider as a council. I went through your capital budget for this year, and I've noticed that actually I'm pretty pleased with the way that it was broken out. But in the future, if you're ever having discussions around what you're doing with security with your computer systems, seriously consider treating it as a closed session item. Based on the security of the municipality, and have your discussions there, and do not be publishing what it is that's actually happening with those types of things. Because as the OPP pointed out to us, these guys actually do read minutes that are coming out of municipalities as well. So just something for you guys to think about. Second item that I have, just as a quick FYI, and it's not on my report as well, is my membership on SWIFT. That's the Southwestern Ontario, the fiber technology group that's going in place. That's been an interesting committee to belong to. It has moved very slowly, but we are now in contracts with 3 regions, Wellington County, Lambton, and Norfolk. And so they have worked out and are actually going to be putting fiber in the ground come the spring based on the criteria that go on with that. So again, more to come on that. I really don't know how this is going to affect the town of Lincoln yet. I am in discussions at the region with our CIO as well as the CAO on where the region is really going to stand on this in the future. There are some areas that could benefit potentially out of it within Niagara region, but there are other alternatives that have been coming into play that we seriously need to consider. So again, more to come on that at some future date. Waste collection. So the new contracts have been decided upon for Niagara region. As we talked about before, they have split the contract into 2 separate areas. The area that's going to be looking after us is going to be GFL Environmental, a big company. My understanding is a very, very well-run waste management company. So part of the reasoning at the region to split it into 2 was to essentially give, I guess we're not as tied into one particular vendor as the other as we're going on. So I think the solution that's been put in place actually is going to work really well. It was well discussed and it's been well thought out by regional staff. As the mayor and I both know, we've been in a number of meetings on waste, to say the least. Not wasted meetings, but meetings on waste. So I think it's important to note that the press release that came out, we have agreed that it's going to be every second week garbage pickup, along with every week recycling. The whole idea is to move us towards a diversion rate of 65%, which the region committed to a number of years ago. We've been stuck at the level of 55% for a long time, so this is the first step towards that. So that's going into place. There are some cost savings that are going into play with that, but we really can't talk about that yet because the contracts are still in negotiation, like the final pieces of the puzzle, and so it's still in camera sessions. So, and I and both the mayor and I will be bringing back more information as that becomes available for you. Budget 2020. So we've gone through and we've done the first pass of capital. That was done in late October. I wasn't here in November, I apologize. Or I wasn't in the October meeting, sorry, so I apologize for that. We have approved a capital budget of approximately $375 million. To give you an idea, that's $100 million more than has ever been spent at the region before. Of that, $159 million is going towards long-term care. There's facility in Fort Erie that is going to be built. There's also a facility in St. Catharines that is going to be built. These are major commitments of the region to the long-term care side of things. Of that, $129 million is going to be debt financed from those developments. So there's some other things, and we have discussed this at Regional Council as well. There's a number of things that have been deferred from previous years that haven't been taken into account with this budget. Both Mayor Easton and myself have had an opportunity to look at some of these things. I'm a bit disappointed. There's some areas that I think should be moved forward as well, but again, we can't be spending really any more than I think we currently have on the capital budget docket. So hopefully we're going to get a good opportunity to review capital once more before we get into our final stages. Governance review. So all of us have been affected by the governance review in some form or another. So amalgamations are off the table, or at least those are what all the headlines have said. I really don't think, though, that should stop us from examining where efficiencies can come into play. And I know the CAO's group is very active looking at potential opportunities. I know the mayors have been looking at it as well, and I also know there's discussions going on at the region in these areas as well. So I think there are some real opportunities in the areas of like information technology, possibly legal, possibly HR. Maybe some areas of public works need to be rearranged. Economic development and planning that can and should be examined. So I'm looking forward to the discussions that are going to go on amongst all the various groups over the next year or two. Let's see. I attended the community safety zone meeting at our school at 20 Valley back at the end of October. And the thing with that is that that was very well done. The police gave a very good presentation at that meeting. It was really cool being there with all the kids in their assembly as well. So that seems to be working relatively well. I wanted to briefly mention the Women's Advisory Committee at the region has been set up. Some interesting discussion went on with that, I would say, at that particular meeting. But both Mayor Easton and myself are completely supportive of the setup of that committee, and we're looking forward to seeing where that takes us. So I'm hoping there may be some interest from members of Lincoln Council to be involved with that. Remuneration. What can I say about remuneration? Been a big time discussion by a few people at the region. What has happened is what has been put in place is essentially the same thing that is being used here in the town of Lincoln with regards to increases in pay for remuneration. So I think Sandra and I both laughed at each other and said this is hopefully the last time we're ever going to have to speak of remuneration at the region. So my final comment is on town hall meetings. I had one on October 22nd. Thank you, Councillor Michalek, for coming to that, and also Mayor Easton. I also attended Paul's and Mike's Ward 3 meeting, and that was a good meeting. You guys were able to get an awful lot of information out to the community, and so Councillor McPherson and I did talk afterwards, and we may want to think through, if we're doing these meetings on more than one occasion during the year, whether or not we should be doing some sort of a joint meeting. So anyway, more to come on that. So anyway, that's my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, we have interested parties. You'll be happy to know. Councillor McPherson.
Oh, she's first.
Thank you, Mayor Easton.
Well, it says
Thank-
number one, but yes, Councillor Timmers, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Councillor Foster,
figure this
for
out.
coming monthly. It's great to see you here.
I'm sorry I missed October, so.
Well, that's okay, but you've been here every other month, so I'm quite pleased to see that. I know we've had discussion around the garbage, and there's been a lot of discussion about the garbage. I know it's set to roll out, but is it still on the same plan for a year from now, or do you have a date on that?
Yeah, the new contracts come into play next October.
October?
So
Okay. All right, and unfortunately, I couldn't make your town hall meeting because I was away, and I missed it, but.
you were in Portugal.
I was.
Yes.
I actually left the country. But I would really be interested in partnering for sure at the next ward meeting. Our Ward 4 meeting was very well attended, and there was a lot of conversation and questions that were region-related. So I think it would be a really great fit to have you present if we can work out dates and it works for you, so.
Just to sort of make a comment on that, and again, that was one of the things Councillor McPherson and I talked about afterwards. There was an awful lot of questions did come up that were region-focused. And so, I know enough not to say things at times. So, so I was able to listen, and I took a bunch of notes and took them away from it. But it certainly would be a good opportunity for all of us to talk more generally about some of the issues that are going on. So I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to express interest in the Women's Advisory Committee as well. So,
Okay.
anyway, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just further to the joint meeting, yes, Councillor Foster and I had a conversation about many of the things that are joint region and municipality challenges that we've got staring at us, the various things that are down in Vineland and, also some things in Jordan. But, we talked briefly about getting together, which I think would make a lot of sense. We've casually talked about joining 3 and 4 together and just have a meeting that really, I think for us, as far as Councillor Mikulik and I are concerned, would help to bring out some of the Vineland folks that we're probably not seeing today. We are seeing some of those from Brookside, but we'd like to get a bigger participation out of our area of Vineland. So I think it makes sense to maybe look at the 2 wards coming together with the region and really putting together an information session that would speak to some of those key things that are on people's mind that the region's participating in. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Foster, thanks for coming tonight and providing this information and taking questions. Just curious, with regards to the region budget, it's a substantial number, the $375 million and change. And you've mentioned a couple of investments that are being made in other municipalities. Can you highlight some of the investment that's going to be occurring in Lincoln with regards to this amount?
Off the top of my head, I really can't at this moment. There's a number of smaller items that have been discussed on the public works end of things that are going into play for a variety of developments, et cetera. They aren't huge ticket items. As I said, the big ticket items this time around are the long-term care facilities, and that's making a huge dent in what's going on at the capital budget.
Okay, and then with regards, if I may, another question. With regards to the waste collection, I read the press release. Is there any consideration from the region with regards to regional municipalities and the possibility of dumping on the sides of the roads? I'm worried
I don't
about.
think you should do it.
I'm worried about the case of diversion, and I'm worried that people are going to be diverting sensitive documents from their trash and just ditching their trash every week, for fear of missing garbage day, especially if it's bi-weekly. There could be a possibility where you have trash for a month. There's some enhanced services that are proposed. Are these going to be charged upon us, or is there any way we can have those fees waived especially for the rural municipalities?
So a fairly loaded question that you have there on a few differing levels. So I'll try and answer as best I can. Assume that we did our homework with this as we were going through, and one of the main things that came out of this, from the studies that we've got back in and through, and from the research from other municipalities, particularly other regions, yeah, we might have a short-term problem with people doing dumping, but the problem seems to go away. And in fact, when the previous iteration went around, when things were moving into a differing state of garbage back a number of years ago, there were also some problems at that time where people were doing things that they shouldn't do. So it's a learning process as it goes on. So the expectation is that, yes, we might have some problems, but it will clear itself up. As far as waste goes, we've been very clear with staff that there has to be some methodology of allowing people the opportunity to dispose of waste in certain situations, even perhaps on a weekly basis. So they're coming back to us with an additional report on that. The logical ones are medical waste that are coming into place, and also things like diapers and those types of things. There are options that we have looked at within the contracts to go and deal with some of those things. So, so yes, those things are being looked at as well.
And if I may, one more question. Thank you, Madam. Remuneration at the regional level, with regards to these committees that are formed, has there been any discussion with regards to the value of these committees? The remuneration is fantastic when it's a busy schedule and there's value for dollar. However, is there any thought that some of these committees, especially the chairs of the committees, is there a value in these committees that maybe perhaps attended fewer than they should be, or there's fewer meetings than perhaps should be in a course of a year?
I'm not exactly sure where your question is going with that. I can tell you as a regional councillor, I'm spending close to 30 to 40 hours a week working on things around stuff for Niagara Region. I know Mayor Easton as well has a considerable amount of time that she puts into dealing with things. So, like, it is what it is. I mean,
Okay.
you know, it really in the end, you know, something we're working with Niagara Region. We have the same thing as you guys have as councillors here. It's a full-time job, but it's part-time pay. So, and by the way, I'm not getting wealthy off of being a regional councillor, so.
Well,
So.
I've not said that once. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the regional chair, or the regional chair. One day. Regional councillor. I'm glad to see you did comment on one of my concerns about the garbage pickup with, in particular with diapers, just to making sure that our young families aren't going to be a detriment because of this new system. My main question, though, is regarding the operational budget from the region. Any inclination or any insight into where that might be heading as a whole or percentage of?
A few times, and I can tell you from what I'm looking at, and this is just a pure guess as it's going on, I'm thinking we're landing somewhere between 5 and 7% at the region. So, but there's an awful lot of things that have to go into play before that happens. So, but again, from my point of view on the thing, that's from what I have been seeing and in the discussions that I'm going on with. And there's no question that both Mayor Easton and myself have an awful lot of work to do with this over the course of our budget deliberations at the region as well. So we have an all-day session pretty much on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks to Halloween falling when it did, so we're starting at, I believe, 9 in the morning and working our way through till to the operations budget meeting in the evening. So it's going to be a long day for us.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. One just quick follow-up. A lot of the HR turnover HR concerns from this past year, would those be applied to this year's budget, 2019, or would they be applied to 2020 budget? Any insight into that?
Questioning which HR issues are we talking about? Are we like some of the terminations that may have gone on at the region? Most of that is absorbed into the budget. and was taken care of. So we're not at liberty to talk about settlements that have gone into play. And there's going to be other things that are coming down the road as well. But suffice it to say, you know, when you make significant changes, I mean, it's not inexpensive. So, but that's been absorbed into the budget. So,
Into the budget for 2019
uh,
or upcoming?
the items around the staff that have been settled were part of 2019. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam Clerk,
oh, he's got his light on now.
is Deputy Mayor Brunei's, is it on? It's on? Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the Regional Councillor Foster. Rob, thanks very much for coming again. Just a quick question. I think we've talked about this in the past, but glad to hear your positive comments about what happened at the community safety zone at 20 Valley School. And we had talked, you know, Councillor Patrieve and I probably get more emails and calls about Mountain Street in Beamsville than we do probably anywhere else within our ward. So I know we've talked about this in the past, but if you could just remind us again when we anticipate discussions on the community safety zone for St. Mark's School?
Well, first of all, and I have said this to the regional staff as well, there's been more done to make traffic safety improvements on Mountain Street than just about any other road in Niagara. I myself, as I'm coming over the hill and coming down through, I'm amazed at what some of those markings do. It's a continuous reminder, making sure that people know and understand what it is they're getting into. The establishment of the extra, the lowering of the speed during the daytime, all these types of things. I think it's been very positive moves that have gone on. As far as community safety zones, yes, in my discussion with our Director of Transportation at the region, there's a comprehensive plan that's going to be coming in for next year. Basically, they're going to be looking at all schools that are along regional roads, and the whole idea is to go and put the community safety zones in place for all of these. So can't tell you when it's actually going to happen for Mountain Street, but it's coming. So, and by the way, the other one that's being pushed on us, or not pushed on us, being discussed is St. John's out. You know, the one we kind of always forget about at the corner going over to Grimsby. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I mean, I do agree with you. I mean, you know, this council put forth a motion, you know, to the region that we asked for, you know, Mountain Street to be stepped up. So I do agree with you. I concur that, you know, there's been some really good short-term things put in place. So I do appreciate that. So just one other question through you, Madam Mayor. So Rob, you made it perfectly clear that you're not at liberty to talk about the waste collection contract because you're still in terms of closed session on that. But I heard an interesting dialogue, and I didn't catch the whole thing from its onset this morning on the radio, where they were talking on CKTB about Niagara Falls. I'm just wondering if you could shed some light into whether I heard it right, but that Niagara Falls is basically saying they're not happy with the bi-weekly program, and there was some discussion on CKTB that, you know, whether Niagara Falls has the ability to go off on their own, and I'm just wondering if you could comment on that.
Unfortunately, again, had a legal opinion that came back that we were dealing with in closed session, so I'm not at liberty to talk about that either, so.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Patrieva.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you again, Robert, for coming this evening. Nice to see you. Tony touched on it, the Mountain Street Community Safety Zone, and we appreciate the modifications that the region has made to Mountain Street in the different iterations to slow traffic down, but that was one of the #1 concerns at our ward meeting was the continuation of it. And we spoke about the success of the 20 Valley community safety zone on Vineland, and just thinking that if that was established, it would be another tool in the toolbox for the Niagara Regional Police to actually change some behavior. So with respect to that, and then a follow-up would be, and hopefully in this year's region's capital budget, we will finally see the installation of overhead signage at the King Street and Jacob Beam crosswalk, as it is one of the only ones in the region on a regional road that has no, press the button and the signs light up. So is that, please tell me that's there. Or you haven't got that deep yet?
Well, first of all, I happen to 100% agree with you. I think it's the right thing to do there. And I've agreed with that for 20 years being on council here. So whether or not it's in the budget or it's going to be done this upcoming year, I'm not sure. There's a number of things that have come out of your transportation master plan that the region is looking at. And by the way, that was an excellent document that was done. As much as I complained that it wasn't going fast enough when I was on this council, it's a document that's well worthwhile. But there's a number of things that are going into play. And I happen to know Mr. Graham has been in discussions with people at the region about it and what our next steps are going to be. And as far as transportation goes, I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff we have to do here in town. And this goes back to a discussion we had in one of my first visits as regional councillor, and that we have 2 big subdivisions that have come online on the south end of town. There's going to be traffic issues in down through the downtown area. So, we've all heard complaints up to this particular point in time. It ain't going to get better. So, what I am very happy to be hearing, and this comes from discussions that Mayor Easton and I and others have been having too, is the rejigging and the rethinking of what's going on in the downtown area and moving the trucks out of the downtown area. That is one of the key things that is going to help us all the way along with this. So anyway, it's all part of the ether that we're trying to deal with here. So
Okay, no, I appreciate that, because, the Transportation Master Plan is a tremendous document. It's a living document. It was identified in there, the stoplight at the corner of Stadelbauer and West Avenue that we have talked about for years. So again, and I don't mean to speak out of turn or that, but if it comes to cost sharing to move these items along, I think with it, we would look at that to get them done, because if they're identified in the plan and the plan was done in conjunction with the region, and better to get out in front of this before the subdivisions come on, and then it becomes that changed or that learned behavior that needs to be modified. It's easier to modify it before it becomes ingrained. So thank you, Rob.
Yep. By the way, I think the Director of Transportation, she cringes as I come to start talking to her, because she's getting that one over and over again from me. So,
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I have a few things that I can add, Councillor Foster. In response to Councillor Mikulic's question, I had written down a few projects. I think what we're seeing this year in 2019, there's some carryover here from the budget of 2018, 2019. It's going to be 2019, 2020, and that includes 10 million in Jordan with that big regional component, 2 to 3 years of investment on the North Service Road for Prudhoms, and $1 million in Jordan Station. This year, these are big, and they're not, they all have to be done in order for other work to get done. So I don't think we're short, and the councillor's correct to pay attention to, what that distribution is like. But because of the amount of work that's going on here, we need to, Councillor Foster and I do pay attention to new projects that are coming on, because what will happen then is the politics really will begin in earnest. And we have to be careful that the projects that we have, that we're working with the region on don't get bumped. And we've already had that situation this year where items in Jordan Station in particular have been put aside. And then on top of that, we also have the King Street Durham Road to Lincoln. That's a pretty substantial piece as well. So I think in terms of dollar value and numbers, you know, I don't think that there's any worry at all, but certainly things are taking a little longer. It takes longer to accumulate the money.
To that, Mary Easton, a very good point. I've always told people when I first got on Lincoln Council, I spent 10 years of doing stuff that was unsexy. It was doing the roads, doing the infrastructure in underneath the things, relocating, doing the things in the downtown areas that were required to be done. And I would suggest to you that that's very much the case for this upcoming year when it comes to Lincoln and the region. You know, it's basically getting the table set so that the things can be done, like downtown Vineland that's coming up, and the rest of these major projects that we have that have to be done in our town. So.
I would also say, councillors, that when I spoke with Councillor Reimer this evening, as he is our representative on the Grimsby Road 12 committee, I've asked Ms. Beattie to put together a media statement that all of council can use in regard to the contract as it comes up and as it is solidified, so that we have all of the detail that we need. On the evening that we spoke about the every other week or every week for garbage, the garbage bag that Ms. Habermill brought to the meeting with the green bin articles out of it and appropriately in the green bin, and some of the other items that either belonged in the blue box or the gray box, people really had very little true garbage. So the question that I had for Councillor Reimer was really around the activities that have taken place at Grimsby Road 12, where a few years ago, and when I say a few, I'm probably talking about 8 or 10 years ago, Councillor Foster will know better, when there was only 25% of capacity left. Well, now they're working on a new cell. And so I've asked the councillor to find out what steps, and I've asked Councillor Woodavine as well, because Regional Councillor Woodavine, because he was the chair for over 20 years, I believe. I think it would be beneficial for us to have an update on what are the progressive initiatives that were taken at Grimsby Road 12 in order to create that capacity. And I believe that one of the really important elements was the fact that that dump was built for a certain population. And by limiting the number of municipalities that could come and dump garbage there, we have controlled some of the capacity. And I don't know whether Councillor McPherson sat on that committee in the first term. That is the joy of one councillor in every one time, every one of their first terms. But there is these things all go together. I realize the concern, and of course, you know, we would be concerned if people were dumping on the side of the road. But there's an accountability here around climate adaptation that absolutely has to be taken into account. If there are savings, then that will be great. But most important is the change in behavior. And that it has to take place. If not now, then when? Yeah. That is really very, very important. And the other comment that I would make is that there is reports coming on some of those specialized services, but they really are intended for municipalities to examine and evaluate based on the wishes of their community. But we would pay extra for those. It's not included in the base contract. So if we wanted diapers possibly to be included as a separate pickup or a pickup every week, there may be a separate cost for those, but we don't know that yet. Counselor, did you have something else to add? This is a big topic and one that
Yeah.
is quite important to people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as I said, we've had some pretty thorough discussions, and I think both of us have got to know more about waste management than I think either one of us ever wanted to know. The simple reality on things is that, you know, there's a whole bunch of pieces of this equation. Going to recycling extended the life of Niagara Road 12. By the way, I had the opportunity on my first term as well to be on the Niagara Road 12, so I'm aware of some of those things as well. But I'll tell you, the extension of what's going on there, the extension of the other facilities that we have is critically important as well. So part of this is to do the recycling, part of it is to extend the use of our landfill that we have. And so, you know, something it's a big topic, so. And we're hoping we get it pretty much right, so.
I have, I think we've demonstrated, I think all of us have seen a great contribution, I believe, by Ms. Habermill, not just in terms of this contract, but in terms of managing all the difficulties that we've had for the last 2 years and a bit. And I have a high level of confidence that she will produce. She's very, very consistent in what she tells us and brings a lot of common sense to the discussion.
Yep.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one quick follow-up. I know it's probably too late for this budget season, but has there been any consideration going forward to the size of the recycling containers? Again, I'm just from personal experience and discussion with residents in and around me, we're finding that as people become more engaged in recycling and the efforts to reduce and reuse, those bins right now don't meet the needs for what we can recycle. And I'm finding even us, like we're a family of 4, which I would say is a pretty average family, we are overflowing those recycling containers. And I'm finding that we're hitting a point now where things that could be recycled are ending up in the garbage. And I think that's, it's unfortunate, but I'm wondering if somewhere down the road we could look at a larger capacity bin. I know it'll be costly, and it's one of those things that I hate to bring up, but.
So they have increased the size of some of the bins. I'm not sure exactly which ones you're using, Councillor Russell. They have made the bigger ones now, and in fact, here at the town, if you're coming in to get them, it's only the bigger size that's available now. And it's the same thing with the paper and those types of things. I have in my garage 3 recycling pieces. Now, mind you, I would say in the last year we've cut down dramatically on it, but there was a time when I was putting out a couple of recycling bins every week. I think the bigger issue for all of us, and all of us lived through this, we'll call it the let's get a big wind and let's blow everything all over the community situation. And in discussions that I've had with Ms. Habermill, they're looking at a couple of options with that. So I'm hoping that we're going to be having some good news as we're rolling into the springtime to sort of also show what those other pieces of the puzzle are. One of the things that was discounted very early in the whole process was having just the single big container that you have a machine come along and dump into the thing. That was discounted a long time ago. I think, Mayor Easton, you would have, I think it might have even been on last council when that was discounted. So, so anyway, long and the short is that, you know, you can come and trade in or get another one for yourself as well, or, but there we go.
So no issue having multiples?
No. Why, no. If you think you're only allowed one, that's.
However, there was a discussion about rolling bins, Councillor Russell.
Yeah.
Councillor Russell, there was a discussion at the last meeting about rolling bins. So that may be the size that you're talking about, and there has been no final decision about that.
No. all of that stuff is very expensive, so.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, Counselor. Counselor Mikulik.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. Just, I have no doubt about the environmental merits with regards to every other week garbage collection. The concern I have is that we took out a survey and there was more against, if I don't recall. Oh, okay, but overall, the survey was that there was more against every other week than there was for. What I'm worried about is that town staff their jobs may become janitors or custodians of the town due to this illegal dumping that may occur. And I'm just hoping that we can advocate for ourselves as far as some sort of help with regards to that, because if we have to start patrolling the rural roadways for trash, this is going to become an expense for us down the road, looking down the road. And that's the concern I have, is the added cost that we would bear as a municipality, especially a rural municipality. So that's why I bring up those concerns.
Fair enough, Counselor. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just as a quick comment to that, if I can, Madam Mayor, the whole thing, and Mary Stin and I have both been dealing with this. There's a strong education component that's going into place as we move into this. Lots of discussions are going to be going on, and to be perfectly frank, you know, I'm hoping that. You know, with the work that you guys have done here on Lincoln Council, talking about a place to grow, a place to prosper, that people are going to essentially not do what it is that you're thinking they're going to do. So we shall see.
Certainly, Counselor, a significant concern that's been raised by a number of people, so thank you very much. Councillor Foster, I'd also like to add a bit to the governance review. As you know, I'm not a big fan of budget by eraser. I think that probably one of the best examples that we've seen at the region in regard to transformational change is the new emergency management system changes that are taking place. This is a really excellent example of what happens when you take the long view. Sometimes you need to leave the country to find out how other people are doing work, but there's no question that the statistics around the cost of EMS were going through the roof and projected to be off in the stratosphere. And so they started to study this, I must say, under Dr. Yeager's watch. And they are now starting to see the kind of transformational change that you want. That identification of who does what are those levels of care that are required, who can provide that service, when, and what can you redirect away from the hospital in particular. So if anybody wants to read about that system, Councillor Foster and I certainly have that and we can share it. However, when you look department to department, that's the kind of long-term, in-depth, detailed change that needs to take place. Those alternative delivery models are what you're looking for. It's not just a matter of cutting service and hoping for the best. And that is one of the most complex systems at the region. And they are starting to see significant improvements. So that is certainly a good news story. I have concerns about the governance review, about a review that looks at lists of activities and arbitrarily decides who's going to do what by hiring a consultant who looks at the numbers only. And that is where we're at right now. So I know there's more reports that are coming. I'm a little bit skeptical at the moment, but you know, we're all going to be watching very carefully. This is very important piece of our work for the next year or so.
If I can add, Mary Stin, You're using EMS is an excellent example, and just for everybody's edification on that, what has been done in Niagara is now being held up as a poster child for basically Ontario, and it's being looked at across Canada. We have really good leadership in that area, and I'm pretty happy with where that's gone. There are some areas, in my opinion, sometimes Sandra and I don't always agree on everything, but in my opinion, there are some opportunities for the CAOs to talk seriously about IT infrastructure. There's areas to talk about on the legal side of things. Some of these things are big cost items, and there are just some opportunities that we can do to hopefully, over the course of time, go and start reducing some of those costs. So I happen to also be in favor of Mayor Easton's comments that no, we don't take a machine gun to this stuff. We have to go and look at them, case by case. I happen to be a believer that planning is something that should be in the hands of the lower tier municipality. I happen to think that what we have at Niagara Region is huge and bloated, and I think there needs to be something done in the future with that. But again, my opinion. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm really glad that you're on the same track as I am, Councillor. We do, there are many times when we don't agree, but that's fine. Thank you very much, Councillor. It was a very good discussion this evening, and certainly from the response, everyone here around the Horseshoe.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, and good luck with your budgets as you're going through them as well.
Thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik. Is that Councillor Mikulik with the red pen? Yes, it is. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik and seconded by Councillor McPherson to receive and file the update from Regional Councillor Foster on November 18th, 2019. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. And we're now considering item 12.2 PD 74-19 sign variance application by Corneith Produce. Do members of council, actually, who's, Mr. CEO, who's going to present this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think Director Dale can speak to it.
Very good, thank you, Kathleen.
Yes, in regards to this report, Madam Mayor, this report is for a sign variance application by Corneith Produce. What they're doing is they want to put a sign on the side of their building that's the same as the front of their building. They do have Ministry of Transportation approval. And because the sign bylaw does not contemplate these types of signs when you're in the agricultural zone, the applicants have applied for a sign variance, and staff are in support of the sign variance application.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dale. Councillors, any questions? I have Councillor Rinchima. Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, so my understanding is that the only part of the zoning bylaw that needs to be varied in this case is the restriction that these signs not be allowed in the agricultural area. So that's fine. Is that something, do you know, that we're planning to change in our upcoming zoning bylaw?
Mr. CEO, do you have any response?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the answer is yes, but Kathleen can provide some more details potentially on what we're looking at as part of the zoning bylaw. I don't know what other provisions may address this versus the zoning bylaw, Councillor, so Kathleen can probably expand on that further.
Ms. Dale, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, actually, signs are not actually addressed in a zoning bylaw. They're actually addressed in the sign bylaw. So there is a private property sign bylaw under review. And this is one of the things that obviously needs to be taken into consideration in the new sign bylaw.
Okay, thank you, that makes sense, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is that, just while we're talking about this, is that bylaw coming soon? Wednesday? For private property, okay, all right, that's good, thank you very much. Any other questions? I don't see any.
Yes,
Councillor Brunei. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. So just to the Director of Planning, I appreciate the work that's gone on this. I did receive a call from Mr. Corneef back a number of months ago, and I do see that his new sign that faces Durham Road is up, and so I'm assuming that this is now the sign that will face the Queen Elizabeth Highway and needed some work with the MTO. So I appreciate the work of staff. And just reading the report, I just, through you, Madam Mayor, just want to make a typo fix, if we could just change on the report on PD 7419, it says words affected Ward 1. I believe that should read Ward 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. All right, I have a motion, moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Mikulik, that Council approve the sign variance application in the name of Kearney Produce to permit the installation of a wall sign. Your pleasure on the motion. Those opposed, motion is carried. There is no notice of motion this evening. We move on to items 14.1 through 14.3. These are the file council information packages. Ladies and gentlemen watching from home, they can be found online for your review or on the website. They tend to be quite extensive. Councilors, are there any comments? Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the October 25th package, there was a document, Ontario Helping Make Municipalities Stronger, and it was $143 million to help lower costs and improve services. And I know that the CAO put out an email today speaking to that 143 million. And I wonder if I can tap our CAO on the shoulder here and maybe have him run through how that I think 125 million, how we've benefited from that and how we may benefit in the near future for that available money.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. CAO?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor and to all of council. Councillor McPherson is correct. Earlier today, I did put out an email just highlighting what was in Minister Clark's letter and what some of the details around the municipal modernization program are all about. And just to review that, altogether the province is, as the councillor highlighted, giving out $143 million in funding for two different programs. One is the Audit and Accountability Program, and the other, as we mentioned, is the Municipal Modernization Program. The Audit and Accountability Program is for larger urban municipalities, whereas the Municipal Modernization Program is aimed at smaller and, in a number of cases, more rural municipalities. We do have access to a pot of $125 million. As council will recall, a number of months ago, we brought a report forward, and as our municipality, we received approximately $700,000 to look at modernization. At that time, we made some recommendations and we put those monies into a reserve. We are currently undertaking a corporate systems review. Some refer to that as an IT review. And one of the elements, one of the key elements and principles within the report was to look at modernization through technology. So we are awaiting those IT recommendations, those IT solutions, and potential service improvements. But second to that, as a result of the governance review and the conversations around governance and the fact that we are not moving forward with any sort of amalgamation, but rather looking at service efficiencies, That program has become an application-based program, so there are some additional monies that municipalities can potentially tap into. And so a few of my colleagues are sitting around the table are talking about how do we look at efficiencies, how do we look at service delivery. As a senior team, we'll be sitting down this week, also looking at that. There are a number of intakes, but the first intake actually closes within the next week and a half. And so I think we're looking at, do we have some existing initiatives that we are contemplating, for example, customer service, some issues around fleet that we can potentially apply for. As well, in that piece of correspondence, there was some information around the green infrastructure stream of the Invest in Canada Infrastructure Program. And you will be getting a report at the December CIS committee that speaks to that particular application. There is a one-time up to $3 million fund available for municipalities to tackle critical local water, wastewater, and stormwater needs. And so definitely cognizant and aware of this. Mayor Easton and I also attended a meeting last week with MPP Oosterhoff and the parliamentary assistant for Minister Clark, MPP Jim McDonnell, who some of us met when we were at AMO. And at that meeting, we spoke about open for business. We spoke about other issues around red tape and cutting red tape, and if there were any recommendations. And you'll recall, I think, in your correspondence of November 1st, you received a media release from MPP Oosterhoff that spoke to that red tape initiative as well. So a number of things around modernization, or a number of things around municipal efficiencies that are being either looked at or sought, and the government is looking at providing funding for those initiatives.
Thank you. Yes, that's great. And it is great to see that we continue to be out in front of these funds, and applying for these funds. And I know it's been a focus for the staff over the last couple of years, and I think we've been very successful getting funds out of both levels, provincial and federal levels. So another opportunity is for us to offset some of the impact to our residents when some of these projects that we need to get done, we can get some other funding. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I would also like to note item number 1 in this grouping Friday. It's the October 22nd mailing from the town of Ingersoll. And I bring this to council's attention because I have requested that the Town of Lincoln representative on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority come and address this council to specifically speak about the what is considered mandatory and non-mandatory, as well as programs that the NPCA may have in mind where our cooperation will be required. And so I draw this one to your attention so that you can see that Ingersoll, and which includes Town of Ingersoll and the County of Oxford have joined together on this. So we may want to have similar communication in the future on this directive that came from the province to the conservation authorities to limit their activities to mandatory programs. It's just that nobody really knows what they are at the moment. So that is one. Does anyone else have anything then starting on October the 28th? I would draw your attention then to number 1, which is the news release from our MPP Sam Oosterhoff. And I bring this to your attention because there are many occasions when our communities, our community groups are involved in doing good for the community. In this case, it's really the not-for-profit soup kitchens, after-school programs, new and innovative food rescue and delivery organizations that operate in schools, community centers, churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues. And they're lightening up the rules here so that it isn't necessary to have people on, they don't have to be paying people on site who have specialized skill in this area. And I'm just looking for the exact words, and I just don't find them. But they all relate to having specialized personnel, and so they have been exempt from requiring unnecessary barriers for food-sharing organizations. So they include a set number of hand-washing stations. You can imagine how expensive that is. A 2 or 3 compartment sink for cleaning utensils or commercial mechanical dishwashers, and at least 1 food handler or supervisor on site. So it's just to make those situations more realistic. And also, I'm sorry, actually, that was number 7. And actually, number 8, this came from the city of Welland, and I think this is quite important, and I believe that I have asked that this be included on a future agenda, the issue of joint and several liability. Mr. CEO, I believe that we need to update ourselves on what our current situation is. If you might have any comments on that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will be bringing back that very matter to a future meeting, and absolutely, I think it is an opportunity to look at updating and integrating our policies more.
Very good. All right. I have a motion then moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Pachariva. Receive and file the following council information packages. Council information package October 25th, November 1, and November 8, 2019. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. We have no confidential items to consider this evening. Oh, we have one. I'm sorry. We have one confidential item to consider this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Brunet. Under Section 239 of the Municipal Act, notice is hereby given that committee adjourn to closed session in order to address personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees as it pertains to Niagara Peninsula Energy, Inc. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, council will now be going into closed session. Madam Chair, I may have handed you back my script. Just because there was some notes that I'd written to myself, okay. All right. Okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that committee resume in open session and receive the update provided by the CAO about Niagara Peninsula Energy, Inc., NPEI. Your pleasure on the motion. All those in favor, none opposed, the motion is carried. We have no bylaws this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell, seconded by Councillor Pachariva, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2019-110, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Monday, November 18th, 2019, being read a first, second, and third time. That bylaw number 2019-110 be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and county clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. We're now on item number 18, announcements by members. And I have Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm bringing an update as to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'm the representative on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, which is a committee that we contribute to financially each year, along with West Lincoln, Pelham, Thorold, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Grimsby, to ensure that the facilities we operate and the services that we provide are equally accessible to all users, great and small. We have representatives on the committee from each municipality, some of which you may know. I'll mention a former member that is greatly missed now, and that's Connie Groves. Unfortunately, Connie moved out west and is no longer on the committee. We all know her for her commitment to bringing awareness to accessibility issues. Another person most of you know that is new to the committee along with me is Carol Fuhrer of Community Care of West Niagara. The chair of the committee is Donna Harrington of Harrington Group Consulting Firm, and we're lucky to have her skills and experience at our avail. As an update to what the committee is doing, we received our annual update to the 2018-2022 multi-year accessibility plan this last Thursday. The goal is to, through the activities and deliverables outlined in the plan, achieve full compliance with the Accessibility for Ontario's with Disabilities Act, AODA, as is the goal of the legislation by 2025. The committee also works to educate the community at large, which I'll tell you a bit about shortly. The committee conducts regular accessibility audits of the municipal facilities in all 6 of its member municipalities to ensure compliance with the AODA and the regulations as they come into play, and we'll be scheduling audits for our facilities in the coming months. Another initiative that the committee undertakes is the Accessibility Awards, where local businesses can have committee members come in to review their place of business, and as a result may be the recipient of an accessibility award. Look for this in the coming months as the awards will be presented here in council chambers. And finally, know that December 3rd will be the day that the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee would like the town to schedule a flag raising to raise awareness of International Day of Persons with Disabilities. My understanding is that this request will be coming shortly from the chair, and I've brought the flag with me tonight, and I'll be handing that to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Councillor McPherson, just give me a...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did participate in the Niagara Children's Business Fair on Saturday, November the 9th. It was held at Balls Falls at the MPCA building there, and I participated as one of the 3 judges, which was a lot of fun and very challenging. We had 27 young companies participated that were represented by 37 kidpreneurs. There was well over 300 in attendance at the event. Councillor Timmers was there. Mayor Easton was there with her 2 grandkids who filled me in with lots of stories about what they thought one of the vendors should be doing with their comic books. But congratulations go out to Jessica Esterbrooks and Kathy Bowers, who were here in front of council and made the presentation. They were the event organizers, and they put this whole thing together. Of course, the many sponsors that were involved, and our own Paul Deaney was also very helpful in getting this first of off the ground. And there is a nice article in Grimsby Lincoln News last week on the event, and they are planning to make this an annual event. So it was great, a great start. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's great. Thank you very much. If you could just turn off
sorry.
your piece there. Thank you very much. Councillor Timmers?
Thank you, Mayor Easton. That was a fabulous event. I was so impressed with those young people. They had their business case together and their product, and they were ready to sell. And I went home with a bag full of all kinds of things. I actually have a couple little Christmas gifts already set aside. So I just have one announcement. Today, you probably noticed the email from the Age-Friendly Committee. Our survey launched today. We're looking for input on quality of life in Lincoln as people who live here view it. So the survey is going to be public for about 2 months. You can find it on our website and on our Facebook page. And if you could take a few minutes and kindly fill it out, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and I would recommend that you also take a look at the Trinity United Church survey that was done over the summer. That was also looking at priorities, and there are some common themes. You can, if you haven't seen that report, I did make it available through my assistant, but if you would like your own copy, speak to Andrea. Thank you very much. I have a few items. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we're all keeping pretty busy, which is why we're here, why we're representing you. And on October the 29th, I had a meeting with the CAO and a member of the Friends of Lincoln's History about the 50th anniversary, the 50th anniversary of Lincoln anniversary calendars, and they're available now. They're 2020 calendars, of course, at $10, and I believe that you will find them advertised on the website. I did attend the roundtable hosted by Trinity United Church and a variety of stakeholders, including the region, and I've shared that report to the Region Community Services, and it is available for Lincoln Council as well. This was quite revealing in terms of the problems or priorities in Lincoln, of course, the main one being housing. But it was quite interesting to hear what people had to say. The reason I've shared this with the region is because the region, on behalf of all municipalities, is completing an expectation that has come down from the province looking at safe communities. And I felt that this information and other information that they're going to be collecting on all 12 municipalities is going to be very important. On October the 29th, I also met the marketing representatives for the Jacob, which is the seniors housing facility that's located in Lincoln Square. I'm mentioning it specifically because it is seniors-oriented, and there's also assisted living apartments in it. And their sales office is opening on the Main Street, and I wanted to make sure that people in Lincoln who are looking outside for seniors housing should know that there is more facility that's opening up here. On October 30th, Councillor Brunet and I met with the chair of the Police Services Board to review their budget with them and to discuss our goal to have an increase in community policing. And that may require a substantial increase in the policing budget, which currently has a request for 40 additional full-time equivalents. However, those 40 full-time equivalents represent the number of officers that are not available for active duty for one reason or another. So it really brings us down to net zero improvement. And so we did have quite an extensive discussion, and I expect to have more discussions on this matter at the region. On October the 31st, I had a meeting with NHS. The CAO and I attended to have a discussion regarding growth in Lincoln, particularly in the East End, and the level of health care services that are available and need to be available in the future. I also attended the Niagara Economic Summit that was hosted by GNCC. On November the 1st, I attended the Bruce Trail Landowners Appreciation Potluck that was held at the Rockway Community Center. I believe that Councillor McPherson has attended that in the past, and it really was quite an eye-opener in terms of the people. And it was interesting to hear different perspectives on why people allow others to walk on their land and some of the results of that. It was all very positive. On Saturday, November 2nd, I attended with the Ward 2 councillors to discuss a tree cutting question related to a neighborhood on Highland Park Drive. And I bring this up to you because as a result of our discussion, we decided that we needed more information from people with different perspectives. And actually, I made a phone call to one of our local activists in relation to tree cutting. The tree cutting bylaw, the town's tree cutting bylaw, the region's tree cutting bylaw, they all have different nuances. And we're not going to make any gains on this at all until we are able to bring our bylaws together into something that doesn't leave these doors wide open for people to come in and do the Sunday afternoon clear cuts. We had a meeting on November the 5th regarding the Beamsville Farmers Market. Councillor McPherson attended that as well as our representative of the BIA, as well as Mr. Kirkopoulos. On November 6th, some of the senior management team and Mr. Kirkopoulos and myself attended the Ridley Remembrance Day service, and it was a very, very moving experience. We attended the lower school. On November 7th, I attended a discussion on the upcoming emergency management exercise, which was held, I believe, last week. It was a tabletop exercise. On November 7th, the Brock Lincoln Living Lab students attended. This is the new crop of students, and Mr. Kirkopoulos and I both met with them, and part of the discussion that I had with them was about preparing themselves for the future work environment and the 7 core competencies that employers are seeking when they make new hires now. The Hampton Hotel reopened in St. Catharines. This may or may not be of particular interest, except to know that We are quite short of hotel space, of beds in this area, and therefore to know that there's another hotel close at hand that is fresh and new, that we can refer people to is good news, I believe. And on November 8th, we had a information session, our monthly session with Sam Oosterhoff, our MPP, which provides the CAO and I an opportunity to be quite frank with our representative about issues that are quite important, and he is just as frank with us if there's something that he's hoping to achieve. The Brock Women in Business Awards were on November the 8th, and I believe that there were 4 candidates who were shortlisted, and as well the MC happened to be from Lincoln, so we were very, very well represented. I also had a good time at the Child Business Fair, and really, when we ask that question of ourselves, what can we possibly do to keep people in this community, to keep young people in this community? It's really quite simple. Involve them. Give them a reason to think that you really care two hoots about what they think and what they have to say, and then when they produce the quality of what they produced and that they were demonstrating to us that day, it was just absolutely amazing, just amazing. So certainly something not to miss next year. Councillor Brunet and I attended the 2 Remembrance Day services, one in Jordan and one in Beamsville. At my request, the special attention in this year was for children across the world who suffer as a result of war, but who seldom are recognized for the impact that it has on them. And I want to acknowledge the contribution by Philip Nadherney of the 2 grapevine crosses, which the staff put poppies on them, and also the small grapevine poppies that the children placed at the cenotaphs. I attended at Blessed Trinity on November the 11th, only to find out that they had to cancel their display, but it wasn't for naught, because they had the most unbelievable art display in the front foyer in preparation for their Remembrance Day service, and so it was certainly well worth the drive to Grimsby. On November 12th, I attended the grade 3 civics classes at St. Mark. There's 3 grade 3 classes. Wanting to know how old the mayor was, they had quite a bit, which is asked every year, by the way. They had quite a lot to say about what their priorities are, and their biggest priority at the moment is that they want a theater. They want to be able to watch movies in town. They want a show. And when I told them that we had one, they couldn't believe it. It was a few years ago. As Mr. CAO mentioned earlier, we had the roundtable with Sam Oosterhoff, and that was really about red tape. And of course, I reminded the members of provincial parliament that we're having quite a lot of difficulty with the province's red tape, and they also need to look at how difficult it is for us at times to find our way through some of that morass. There have been a number of opportunities. I think this is business as usual, but I think it's important for the public to know that as a result of planning applications, that there are frequently significant mitigation matters that have to be addressed, and the staff spend considerable time involved with members of different communities where these developments are taking place. I bring this up because I have had some people point out that they believe that the council is not doing nearly enough to control the behavior of of developers. Of course, we know that there are certain policies that we are expected to follow, and failure to do so could cost the town a great deal of money. However, in the meantime, there are considerable discussions that take place and significant improvements to the lot of anybody that is going to find themselves close to a new development. So in closing, it is my pleasure to represent the town of Lincoln. I believe that the councilors present are also very serious about their work out in the community. This is a community that places great value on our grow, prosper, and belong mantra, where our community members work very hard to be good neighbors, and where children are supported to achieve their very best. And I thank you all for allowing us into your home this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that council on November 18th, 2019 be adjourned. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Thank you, council.